So to talk more about this, we're joined by to talk about the Minister's pronouncement, we're joined by Majidie Abrahams, who is the United Coalition for Sports and Community-Based Organizations representative. Thank you so much for speaking to us. So are you surprised by this announcement, or do you think it was a long time coming, as some of our viewers are suggesting?
No, thank you very much, and good evening to you and your listeners. No, look, we are not surprised at this move that has happened today, because it's coming after a protracted process. But let me first just upfront state that as the United Coalition, we firmly stand with the decision taken by CSA at the Saturday meeting not to support the independent bodies, directors' views. Simply to say that, look, from where we are standing, you cannot subvert democracy by implementing private individuals, which is appointed to the board. The democratic principles must hold. It is also our view to say that we've had, as a coalition, we had a number of indabas last year. Sorry, not indabas, but we had a number of processes where we engaged many people within the sporting community, and that culminated in an indaba where we had clearly said no to privatization of sport, because the inequalities within many of our communities are still huge, and transformative issues need to be addressed. Because one of the programs we ran was on Black Lives Matter after the Lungidi issue. And it emerged from there that things have not yet transformed as what we thought in this democratic state. And for that reason, we are saying that this is a bit short-sighted, in where we want to relinquish control to the independents and subject the elected officials through their democratic processes by the provinces to 4 seats on the board, meaning that they would not have any power around cricketing decisions. And people are also saying that this is a business. And we say, yes, it is a business, but it's a different kind of business. It's a hybrid. You have the professional arm, and you have the amateur arm. The amateur arm is the ones that owns all the assets relating to cricket.
But in short, what would you say as a coalition? Do you support the decision?
No, we do not support the decision from to say that the 7 independents must be in the majority to the democratically elected officials from
Okay,
CSA.
So who would the minister have consulted on this matter before coming to a decision? Were you consulted? There are those who are saying the hidden hand of SASCOC, which has been accused of trying to derail the administrative structure of the CSA, can be seen here. What are your thoughts on that?
And that's precisely what we are saying. Sadly enough, the democratic process was not followed through the structures of CSA, where we as clubs, I also have the honor of being a delegate to my province, Western Province, through my club. And we were called to one consultative meeting, where in the meeting we were told by a member of the independent board that the matter is there are non-negotiables as instructed by the minister, and therefore the issue of discussing this matter was never really filtered down to club level, to community level, to organizational level. This matter was mostly dealt with in boardrooms and and through the media, and therefore we are arguing strongly that to say that the minister should rather call for a national imbizo, because this doesn't only affect CSA, it's going to affect all sporting federations in the future. And therefore, the role of SASCOC is critical, that SASCOC needs to be there, because from an international perspective, amateur clubs, amateur sports is what is being recognized, not professional sports. And I think SASCOC must be part of this debate. And together with the federations, we must confront what is actually on the table. So therefore, we are saying the consultative process was not done properly. It still needs to go through that process, and we believe that we are pleading with the minister, let us not end up in the Zimbabwe situation.
So you mentioned this earlier, that a democracy should trump all else, that transformation should be at the center of this. So I want to look at Judge Nicholson's report, among other things, the recommendations that he made about the CSA board to take on more independent directors. Principally, are you against that? What does all of this, the recommendations, mean for provincial structures?
But that's precisely the point, my dear. It's recommendations, it's not prescriptive. It's not saying that the independent should be more than the elected officials. The current setup is 7 members that is appointed from the Presidential Council, which is the provinces and clubs, and 5 are independents. There's nothing wrong with that. There's a narrative that is going around the country and in the media to say that officials of sport have failed and that they cannot run the sport. That has never been tested. It's merely been discussed in certain areas. And therefore, we cannot allow a situation where private individuals ultimately must make decision who becomes the national team and who can play and who can't play, because this is a recipe for private institutions, schools and varsities to be the area for playing sport, and our community clubs will then be relegated to recreational sport. And we do the lottery like we did in rugby. We pull one person out of a province and say he's good enough, let's put him into a private school, and maybe that's the way we go.
Okay.
What about the millions of others?
Beyond transformation, what do you see as the root cause? The Interim Board chair, for instance, says that there's still some 30-odd days before the Minister gazettes the Act, so there's probably time for the Members' Council to iron things out. But where did it really go wrong for Cricket South Africa, and can it be resolved within that short period of time if it hasn't been up until now?
We agree on the principle that says the following. If there are problems within sport, call together all the key people of sports under the banner of SASCOC and federations to discuss this matter and understand what is the problem. We cannot allow individuals to say in a newspaper that this is the problem, or there's this problem and that problem, but there's no evidence that bases that. It is for that reason that we had called for a TRC in sport, because we are at the crossroads. Where are we since our democracy? Is there all of these matters of transformation been dealt with? Why are we hearing stories like Lungidi and what happened to others during their reign when they were playing for the Proteas and others? There needs to be a proper assessment, and we are appealing to the Minister of Sport to call for this in Imbizo, together with SASCOC, the federations, and people interested, and then let's dissect what is the problem, because everyone is saying, and the Nicholson report has made these recommendations, yes, but it was never prescriptive to say that it must be the independents. And that is where we said the non-negotiables, which was told to us in a meeting at Western Province Cricket, that the Minister has indicated by the person who brought the message that these are non-negotiables. And it's all to do with them having exceeded their mandate. The mandate of the independent board was to prepare the federation to go to AGM and have it properly elected. Now they are saying the MOI must be signed. And it's not only this issue, there's 22 other points on the MOI that still hasn't been addressed. So their view is get the new independent board in. We don't have to go through consultative process. We can just implement what we think.
But let's look at what happens in the meantime. So the invocation of Section 13, meaning that we don't have a national cricket team. So what kind of damage will that do to cricket in the country, and will it really result in better decision making? Where does the legitimacy then come from if we are in limbo, so to speak?
The issue is quite simple. Since our advent of democracy and our constitution, it allows for bodies and people through democratic processes to install their processes. What is happening now is we are saying that people who have been working in cricket for 30 years and 40 years, who understands cricket, now has to be put on the sideline while a small group of people decide how we deal with some of these matters of the teams. I think the real question, and that is why we are asking for an honest and open perspective in all sports. Have we achieved what we set out since 1994, since unification, up until now? Or where is the problems? Is it the administrators? Is it, but we are then told, well, if we don't follow this route, nobody's going to put money in. So money seems to be the big issue now in relating as to how we can pick people. So we don't have all the answers. We are saying bring together the people that is relevant, number one, which is SASCOC, the ministry, the CSA, the other federations, and let's have this open and honest introspection and discussion so that we can see where is the problems. But I can tell you now, the view is that we must go to private schools and to private institutions as the area to look for talent and relegate the rest to recreational sports because there's no money to win.
Thank you so much for speaking to us and sharing your insights. Majidie Abrahams, the United Coalition for Sport and Community-Based Organizations representative.